Soundstripe. Soundstripe.
Welcome in, everyone, to Week 7 College Football Lock and Live with Uncle Phil and Smooth Andy. Thanks to everyone for joining us this Saturday morning. Uncle Phil, Smooth Andy, how you guys doing?
Good to be back. I want to welcome in all our audiences across all platforms, YouTube, X, Instagram, and this morning also on TikTok. So welcome in everybody on TikTok this morning as well. So look, excited about this Saturday. Lots of games. I literally couldn't narrow it down. Last night I worked until it was about midnight like usual on the notebook, and got down to 12 games, and then I typically narrow it down to about between 7 and 9 games on the notebook. And this morning I couldn't narrow it down, even added a game. So I'm 13 games on the notebook, and this is kind of putting it all on the table for me this week. So I'm excited about it. Got a winning record in college this year. In the notebook, I'm about 60%. So feeling good about this weekend. A lot of dogs this weekend for me. Smooth Andy, that'll be right up your alley. Dogs, you like dogs, right?
Yeah, I've got two favorites this week out of 12. I think it's 11 bets. So 9 dogs this week.
Yep.
Smooth Andy's always on the dogs. We love it.
Yep.
Well, Uncle Phil, let's just jump right into it. Where are we heading first?
Yeah, headed first to the Red River rivalry. And I really like this game a lot. I mean, this game's always fun. It's completely unpredictable. And literally whatever side you think is going to hit, it's always the opposite. It literally always is when you think that no team has a chance. And even though OU is just decimated on offense, especially on wide receiver, but I don't have the guts to do that. I don't have the guts to bet OU today. But what I do have the guts to do is I think that Quinn Ewers is going to come out a little bit slow from that oblique injury. He's been out. I think the first couple drives that he'll probably be a little bit slow. Wouldn't be surprised if those are unproductive, which I think will help me later on the game. So I'm taking my first bet is the under 49 on my very first best bet of the weekend. My second one is I'm going to Pittsburgh, where Miami is traveling, or not Miami, California is traveling across country in time zones to the East Coast after a very emotional game against Miami, and one where they let it get away. And I'm a big fan of watching teams that where you watch teams, and a lot of times what they do in the second half of games tends to carry over. You saw that the week before with Alabama. Even though they came back and won the game against Georgia, Alabama gave up that lead in the second half. Georgia came back, stormed back, came within a hair of actually winning that game, and an interception at the last minute of the game sealed it, of course, for Alabama. But again, their play carried over to Alabama. It was an emotional letdown going to Sleepy Vanderbilt. I'm kind of counting on the same thing for California. I'm not sure that they're that great of a team anyway, but I think that this is just a bad spot for them to come back from that emotional loss where everybody was hyped up. College game day was there. Tough to recover going to Pittsburgh cross country.
Love both of those. Yeah, tough loss for Cal last week for sure. So let's see if that doesn't carry into this week. Smooth Andy, how about you? Where are you heading?
I am. I've got some uncomfortable bets today. First of all, number one is going to be South Carolina against Alabama at Alabama. This is a spot where Alabama played obviously Vanderbilt last week and lost. You expect a lot of people are going to come out and say, well, Bama's going to be mad, so they're going to just take it to South Carolina. That might be the case, but usually they're more down than up for the next game. And they have Tennessee next week. So this is a sandwich spot. They've already taken a loss, which is one thing that makes it less desirable. If they'd whipped Vandy last week, this would be an even better bet to me. But they didn't, and we'll see. But I've got South Carolina. Also have Florida. Speaking again about the sandwich spot with Tennessee and Florida playing Tennessee and Alabama playing next week. Tennessee obviously coming off a tough loss and looking ahead. I don't know if Florida has any heart left at this point. They seem to be playing maybe a little more competitively since the last week or two. But it's an uncomfortable bet because I think they might have quit on Napier, and I can't blame them if they did. Finally, I have Purdue, which is another uncomfortable one because Purdue hasn't been good at all this year. They've been really rough. But they are playing Illinois this week, and Illinois has Michigan next week. So it's a good look-ahead spot. Also, everybody's on Illinois, the usual, public betting stuff. So those are my three. It's going to be, again, South Carolina, Florida, and Purdue.
Awesome. Looking forward to those ones. Well, let's jump to the questions. We already got a couple across all streaming platforms. Let's start with TikTok first. We got a question. Not related to any Lions users asking about what do you guys think of the Boise State running back Jeanty? Is that his last name?
Yeah, Smooth Andy, have you got a chance to watch him yet?
Just a few highlights. I haven't been able to stay up for a game that late in a while. I usually, after watching football all day on Saturday, I can't make it to the midnight and watch the end of all the late ones. But I do have a bet this week. It's going to be released on Twitter. I do have a bet on Hawaii today against them. The game is in Hawaii, so I kind of like that because Boise State's going. I can't remember if Boise's Pacific or Mountain. It's probably Pacific, but either way, it's at least a time zone or two away, and that's a good thing. And everybody's kind of hyping up Boise, and there's no reason for them to be hyped up for that game. As for the running back himself, he is the talk of college football in terms of running backs. I believe he is the Heisman favorite right now as well. So a lot of talk about that. That can be a distraction too. When you're as you and I were talking a bit ago, and about how everybody's talking about Vandy's quarterback, and he's been on all these programs being interviewed after the win over Bama, and that's a distraction for Vandy this week, right? Yeah,
and you're right that Boise is Mountain Time, so it's across a time zone there to get to Hawaii. Always a different kind of feel when you get out there. Boise State seems like their business. I like Ashton Jeanty. I think he's outstanding. Look, the real proof to me is that if they make the playoffs, will he actually be look the same against Power 4 teams that he does right now against the teams that he's playing? Because, it's not as high-level competition. Look, for me, I'm really hoping, whatever group of 5 team ends up making the playoffs, it's an opportunity for me to just smash them because everybody likes the underdog. But again, physicality wise, they just don't end up matching up. You see that, I know TCU won that game against Michigan. There was some rumors on that one that TCU actually had a lot of the signs for Michigan. But, I just don't think Michigan was ready for prime time that year. Then, of course, they just get absolutely smashed by Georgia in the national championship game. I expect that's what happens this year. Great for them. They spend this year getting to the playoffs, then they just get smashed. And I think that's going to happen. And I will be laying big dollars against whatever group of 5 team makes it to the playoffs. But I love Ashton Jeanty. I think he's great. But again, I really want to see him against premier competition. The playoffs certainly give us the opportunity if they continue to win and make it there. It'll be good to see him. I'm sure the scouts want to see him there too, because you just can't really judge who he is based on level of competition. But, clearly what he's doing is fantastic. Seems like a great runner. What will he be? I don't know, but I think we'll have a better feel for that as the year goes on.
Awesome. Thanks for the question there on TikTok. Let's go first to Blake on Twitter. He wants to know USC +4. Any thoughts on that wager?
That one is in my notebook. I won't. Well, actually, it's not. Did I take that out? Yeah, I took that one out. Look, for me, this seems like such an obvious game for me. I can't believe I left that. I put everything else in and I took that one out. But this seems like such an obvious game for me that I think that Penn State, seeing USC, again, they look smaller. They just don't look as physical against the Big Ten teams. You could see the difference between them and Michigan. Michigan really just kind of pushed them around the field. I know Michigan was one-dimensional. There were some big runs. It just doesn't seem like to me that USC can match up with the physicality. I appreciate Lincoln Riley, but there's some point to me that thinks that he's a little overrated. He's great at recruiting the quarterbacks. He's definitely the quarterback whisperer, but this is, it's just kind of like what Detroit does. Detroit every year tries to fix their secondary in the NFL. They try to fix their secondary, and every year it kind of looks the same. They just kind of get up giving that. And I feel like that USC's defense still the same. They're a little bit better, but again, just not ready. But I think Penn State's the obvious play, but because of that, there's a lot of money coming in, especially on the sharp side to USC. It's a stay away from me, but I think I'll regret it if Penn State ends up smashing him. Penn State over the past couple years or 2.5 years is 25-0 against everybody in the Big Ten except for Michigan and Ohio State, where they just fell miserably against Michigan, Ohio State. We'll see how against USC. I think they'll probably win. I think they'll probably cover, but I stayed away with it. Smooth Andy, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I actually have USC today. I'm trying to remember what popped up for that, but I do like that side because I just think in general, and your points are good ones, but I think a lot of people are down on USC. People are starting to talk about whether Lincoln Riley's going to have his job at the end of this year, and maybe rightly so. I mean, I know when they hired him, they expected to be sort of where Oklahoma was when he was there. But I like it. It's at USC. It's going to be a road game for Penn State. I haven't been terribly impressed by Penn State. I know they're undefeated, but as usual, they haven't played anybody yet at this stage in the year. They don't get around to playing Michigan and Ohio State until near the last quarter of the season or so. So we don't really know much about Penn State. And when I have seen them, they haven't looked as sharp as they had in recent years. So I'm kind of comfortable with that bet. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and and I also think there is a bias against Pac-12 teams, former Pac-12 teams, as you kind of demonstrated a little bit about the size and speed and things like that. I think we tend to see it.
Right.
Well, we tend to see a blue blood Big Ten or SEC program playing a former Pac-12 team and just think, oh, now they're playing big boy football and they're not going to be able to hang. We'll see.
And you're totally right. And I guess I'll defend it a little bit. In fact, last week I did take Washington in my notebook versus Michigan and had them to cover and win. They did. And I just looked at USC as just physically smaller. I didn't see that against Washington, but I just can't get out of my mind the USC being physically smaller. And they just seem a little light in the pants, especially in the offensive and defensive lines. And it just seemed like they're getting pushed around. But your points are fair. Certainly a little bit of bias outside those teams. Those two conferences seem like they're destined to run things in the future with the way that things are expanding, or expansion, deflation, or deflating in other conferences. But I think I just have this bias against USC because I just don't believe in Lincoln Riley. I just don't feel like that he does what he should do, and maybe he's the next Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, everybody talks about him going to the NFL. I'm just like, you can't get college right. Maybe you're going to be this great play caller in the NFL, maybe be the next Cliff Kingsbury, but I'm not sure that you're going to do. You haven't lived up to the billing in college. I don't think that an NFL coach is setting you up for success either.
Well, thanks for the question, Blake. Let's move on. We got Nicholas McCoy. Thanks for coming to the show, Nicholas. Good to see you. He says, any thoughts on Ohio State, Oregon? I know that's in your notebook, Uncle Phil, but he says he's leaning towards the over. So maybe quick analysis on the total in that game. I know Smooth doesn't play those, but.
Yeah. To me, I think probably I think that what I would do is I don't know what it is. What is the first half under? I think both those teams probably tend to come out a little tentative. I think Ohio State's going to have to get used to the noise, and that's going to be different. If you've ever been to Autzen Stadium, it's just deafening there. What a great atmosphere for college football. It's going to be a little different for Ohio State, who's been in the safe confines of their home field this year. I think this is going to be an interesting deal. So I think both teams are going to say, hey, let's not make a mistake at first. Let's not give the other team an advantage. So both teams will probably play a little safe and conservative. So I will.
Uncle Phil, real quick to interrupt. The total for the first half is 26.5.
Yeah, I'd probably play. Thank you for looking that up. I'd probably play the under 26.5. I think that'd be the way I'd play it, just because I think these two teams. And then conversely, I would probably jump in at halftime and take the over in the second half, because I think two teams will be warmed up. I think they'll have a lot better going on, and I think you'll see some points in the second half.
Sweet. Thanks for the question, Nicholas.
Good question.
Next on the line, we're going to Andrew. Andrew from Dallas. Good to see you, brother. Hey, I'm back. Army minus 26.5 versus UAB. They're 120th versus the run, and he's on BYU -3 versus Arizona. What are your thoughts on both those games?
Yeah. Smooth Andy, any thoughts on either one of those?
I'm sorry, I wasn't concentrating. I did hear the Arizona one. I have one indicator on Arizona, nothing on BYU.
And Army was the other one.
Army, yeah, that I'm not on that one because it seems too easy. Army's been so good, and I think they're really catching people's attention. And UAB, I mean, Trent Dilfer is going to be gone if not during the year. At the end of the year, they're terrible. I think they're 1-5 or 1-4 or something like that. So that one just looks too much like, Army's going to kill them. And you might be right. I just feel like at this point the public's starting to catch up with how good Army is and how bad UAB is, and it just feels like a trap a bit for me. So,
yeah, I'm kind of with you on the Army game. I'll talk about that one first. Is that Army, the line surprised me of how high it was. I mean, Army's just a covering machine. So is Navy. Salute to the service academies and how much money they're making us this year. But man, just seems awfully high, especially with even UAB. But UAB it's clearly a stretch. Trent Dilfer went from a high school coach to UAB's coach. Probably should have locked in as a coordinator first to learn that part of the side of the game. I know he was Super Bowl winning coach, or Super Bowl winning quarterback, but obviously a lot different going from high school to college as far as coaching. So I with you. I mean, it does feel like that UAB is kind of quitting right now. I don't see it, but I'm kind of with Smooth Andy. Feel like that, we're in week 7 now. The public has probably caught on to Army. The line seems a little high to me. Another one I'll probably regret not taking, but
Me too.
I wish you the best. I don't blame you. I think you're probably on the right side. I had it on my big board of 25 games when I cut it to, end up at 13 where I'm at today in my notebook. But I just I couldn't see. It just seemed like a lot. I was really taken aback. I mean, it really was an eye opener when I saw the line. I thought it would be around 21, but to see higher than that was just a little bit more for me than I could stomach. BYU, I get it. I feel like the line's a little low for some reason. My inclination was to take Arizona, and Arizona was actually in my big board. I actually had Arizona plus the points in my big board before I cut it off, just because I thought the line was a little fishy. A couple lines out there that I thought were fishy this week, and I'm on the other side. When I see a line that's fishy, I tend to go with a fish and swim that way instead of going with, Vegas just when they show a line out there that looks fishy, they just want the public to go, oh, that's free money, and it's usually not. But as always, man, wish you the best, Andrew.
I would add one thing about Army. Because I believe the public is on to the fact that Army is a good football team and that UAB is a bad one. If UAB covers this week, a lot of people who think Army is a good football team are going to completely change their mind and go the other way. And I think the next game for Army, they'll go right back to covering again. And most of the public will be off them because they'll maybe only have bet them once and they didn't cover against UAB and they say, they're trash. And then they'll be gone. Right. And then they'll be valued right back on them again. So, well, I hope you win your bet, Andrew. If they don't cover today, I think I'm going to probably be on them next week. I'm going to have a lean on them next week, and we'll see how the numbers play out.
You bet.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Well, man, there's tons of questions today. I think people are feeling like you guys are going to have a pretty massive day because, man, tons of comments coming in. Once again, thanks for coming to the show, and these are a lot of great questions. Next on the line, we're going to Pierre from Twitter. He says, what do you think about Bama? And there's a lot of people asking about Bama in the comments. They want your analysis. Can you give it to them?
Smooth Andy, what are your thoughts about Bama, man?
Well, South Carolina is my number one pick this week for a number of reasons. I've got the public is obviously on Bama. They're always on Bama. And it's a sandwich spot for Bama. They lost last week to Vandy. It didn't look like a sandwich spot on the schedule, but it turns out it is one because they have Tennessee next week. And so this week looks like one of those, they'll just play their C-plus game and win by 40. But I had a lot of indicators pop up. One of them is losing the way Alabama did last week. You think teams that are really good that get upset like that tend to go out the next week and take out their frustrations. But sorry, that was my watch. I don't know why it said that. But that isn't the way that things tend to play out. Usually teams are disappointed, the dream killer loss, and they come out a little flat. So I like the spot I'm in on that one. And I already mentioned earlier, I'm on Florida for the same sandwich spot because they have Alabama next week. So they're both looking to that game, and I think they're both going to come in a little flat against their opponents. So.
Yeah, this game's in my notebook. I really like this game a lot. So I won't comment on the sides, but just in general about Alabama. Look, I think Kalen DeBoer is there, but I mean, when you're walking in and you are replacing the greatest football coach of all time, it's a really tough thing to do, especially when your forte is more offense. Now, that's good in football today. You want to be an offensive coach. Nick Saban was more of a defensive coach, but you saw because how great he was, he evolved and didn't just rely on defense. And he brought in, it was like premier coach after premier coach was his offensive coordinator. If you don't go, if you have a chance, Google that. Look at his offensive coordinators. It's Lane Kiffin, Brian Daboll, Steve Sarkisian, Bill O'Brien. I mean, you had tons of coaches that were
Mike Locksley, the coach at Maryland. Yeah.
100%. So I look, a lot of people have even forgot. I'm sure I'm leaving them off, but I mean, just top of my head. I mean, this was just an amazing setup. I mean, and that's one of the great things about kind of being a CEO is being able to see your blind spots and recognize that and being able to bring in those key people. And that's what he's done. Kalen DeBoer is more on the offensive side. Can he bring in the same on the defensive side? Right now, the defensive side's what's killing him. You give up 40 points to Vanderbilt, you couldn't make a stop. And even when you had to, that's concerning to me. Is really not the offense. I love the offense, but being not able to stop Vanderbilt. Look, I think Vanderbilt's great after their first win against Virginia Tech. Look, on my walk and talk, I came out and said, hey, Vanderbilt, this was not an upset. Vanderbilt's for real. This is not. Clark Lee's a great coach. And Diego Pablo is a fantastic quarterback. He's got some guts in him, so I really like him a lot. I mean, his idol's Johnny Manziel, and he plays a little bit like that. I've seen him interviewed. He'd be best to shake a little bit of Manziel out of him, but, it would save him well. But anyway, regardless, stud athlete, stud quarterback, and just an excellent coach, Clark Lee. Vanderbilt, enjoy him while you got him. I doubt you'll have him long. Some big boy's going to make him an offer at the end of this season and take him away. I mean, he's just a fantastic coach. But again, my concern for Bama is really on the defensive side, and I don't see that getting fixed anytime soon. I'm really concerned about that.
Gotcha. Well, let's take a couple more questions here. Maybe let's do it rapid fire style. Will Albright on Twitter, thoughts on Rutgers -2?
Smooth Andy, take that one.
Rutgers, I have. I know they showed up on my board. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have Wisconsin +1.5. I think this one, just a lot of people are on Rutgers, surprisingly, and I did not see that coming. Wisconsin's been pretty down this year. Rutgers is always one of those little teams that can jump up and bite somebody in the Big Ten any given year. But this week, I mean, I'm going to be going against them with Wisconsin. I'm trying to find my metrics here to let you know what I got. It's a conference road dog. It is an RLM game, so there's some reverse line movement. Wisconsin getting 28% of the bets, and the spread went from +3 to +1.5, so that's gone down. Stuff like that. So it popped up on mine. It's all math related, nothing else.
Okay, sweet. Let's keep going rapid fire style. I want to get up to all these questions. Purdue. You guys like Purdue today?
Smooth Andy does. Look, that's
unfortunately
really an interesting situation. I mean, it is I certainly understand Smooth Andy's rationale for taking Purdue today. It's a look ahead spot for Illinois because they've got Michigan next week. So you could understand if they, somehow come out and start blowing them out in the first half. Probably your best bet is to take Illinois in the first half. I'm not sure what that number is. Smooth Andy, can you look that up real quick? The Illinois, what the number is in the first half? Because I think that Illinois in the first half is probably a really good spot because they'll come out, but then they'll probably pull back in the second half and potentially break your heart and not cover. But I do. Purdue's just awful. Their quarterback.
Illinois -13.5 in the first half.
13.5 first half. I think that's a great bet. I wish I'd probably put that one on there, but I do. I think that Illinois is really strong. I think this is a gigantic mismatch. Can Bret Bielema keep Illinois focused for a full game, not look ahead to Michigan and just pound Purdue? It just depends on how far they get up in the first half. I would probably expect them to just – I wouldn't be surprised if it's 28-0 at halftime. But, can they hang on and continue to cover that is the big question. Smooth Andy's looking for the backdoor cover as always.
I'd be perfectly happy if Purdue jumped out first. I'm not complaining about that. I don't want to be down by 30 and then have to try to find a way back in at the end.
But it kind of feels like one of those games, though, right? It does.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's a very uncomfortable thing to bet on a 1-4 team.
It is. But you've made a good living doing that.
Yeah,
you've made a good living doing that. It's Smooth Andy and I are both professionals doing this, but we do it take different angles. Smooth Andy's more of a technical analyst. He's the football quant for a reason. I'm a fundamentalist. Feed off a lot of emotion off teams, but also look at key matchups. And I think we complement each other really well of how we look at things. And certainly Smooth Andy's made me better over the years.
Likewise.
Love it. Well, let's just go to one more question before we jump off here. And sorry to everyone. Would love to get to all these, but kind of on a time constraint. Let's go to the big game. Let's go Texas, Oklahoma. What do you guys think about the side there?
Look, Smooth Andy, do you want to jump in on this one first?
I had it is not on my card today. I'm disappointed. I love when there's a big game like Oregon and then this one, the Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry, and then and then Oregon playing Ohio State. I really want to have a bet on them just because I'm like anybody else. I'm going to be watching them, and it makes it a little bit more interesting. But neither of those games popped up enough for me to take a side. I did have one indicator on Oklahoma, but that's not enough. So, yeah, I'm comfortable with that because I could see Oklahoma getting the doors blown off. But that said, Quinn Ewers is coming back this week, and he hasn't thrown a competitive football in 3 or 4 weeks, so he might be a little slow out of the gate. We'll see. But going to watch both of those games and really enjoy them, but unfortunately nothing on them.
Look, I mean, for me, the world has taken Texas Day. The guy at one sportsbook I talked today said he's got to have Oklahoma today to cover. And typically when he tells me that he's got to have somebody to cover, that's who he needs. And in this game, and I don't know how they get there. Look, I didn't know how Vandy would get there last year. Last week, if you told me Vandy was going to not only cover but win outright, I would have said I would have checked you into an asylum. I would have had an intervention, But look, it happens. It's football, especially with football now with NIL and full gear, the transfer portal. You're going to have teams that underdogs are going to be kind of toward the lean. And this Red River rivalry, even before NIL and transfer portal, it's whoever was not supposed to cover always covered. The underdog covers in this game. I don't know what percentage, but it is just every year. It is hold your nose and take the underdog. And it stinks to high heaven, but you do it. But I couldn't do it this year. What I did count on, again, one of my best bets today is I did take the total in this game because, again, I feel like that Quinn Ewers off the oblique would come out a little slow, maybe be a little rusty for his first couple series. I also think OU decimated, especially at the wide receiver position, especially on offense, not as much on defense. Would also be a little points challenge today. So I took the under 49 was one of my best bets today. Let's cross our fingers and hope it hits. I think it will.
Awesome. Well, any last words here from the two of you guys before we take off? Looking forward to your picks and then looking forward to all these games that you guys have discussed. I mean, a lot of great information every week. On Saturdays and Sundays, it feels like you guys give out a lot of winners just from these questions. So it's always fun to watch those as well.
Yeah, we've been leaving a lot of our best picks on the cutting room floor. At least I have over the past couple of weeks. I've certainly, during the shows, gives an opportunity to talk through games. We certainly I've learned a lot from Smooth Andy. I've also learned a lot from our listeners because they ask really good questions that come in and kind of made me think about things in a different way. And I certainly see those things. But Smooth Andy, any final thoughts on Week 7? This is, not to get too nostalgic, but I am. This is the turning point. This is the halfway point in the college football season. I can't believe we're already here, man. I'm certainly a big softy about things, and when I get nostalgic about things, I get nostalgic about college football. It is, Week 9 when we make the turn in NFL. Week 7, this is a big week in college football. What are your thoughts?
It makes me want to cry a little bit too. I was thinking about that earlier this week. I'm like, man, we're about halfway done. Gosh, after all those months looking forward to finally having college football back, and we're halfway to the end. But I'm going to try to stop thinking about that. It's just depressing to think about it as it's ticking down. That said, obviously the beginning of the year is a little slow because we always end up with a cupcake city in week 0, between the last place MAC team and the last place Sun Belt team and all kinds of stuff like that. So this is the best time of year because conference play is really starting to ratchet up, and all these teams that are holding off, like Penn State, not playing anybody in the first half of the season, well, now they're going to start playing people. They can't avoid it at this point, and it's going to be every week, just great stuff over and over again. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, hey, thanks for tuning in today. I really love this week. I don't know why. I just thought it was an ordinary week. And all of a sudden, I've got 13 plays in my notebook, which is about double the size it normally is. Obviously, if you want that, it's on UnclePhil'sLocks.com. Regardless if you do that or not, we're so grateful that you're here. Please like and subscribe. Smooth Andy on Twitter at SmoothAndy5. I'm at Uncle Phil's Locks across all social media platforms. Thanks for joining, and thanks for liking and subscribing to my YouTube page as well. Guys, let's have a day. And as always, guys, let's roll.
Soundstripe. Soundstripe.